And if you like the video or any other content on the channel, feel free to subscribe. We're getting closer and closer to 500, so subscribe if you like the content. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Okay, so this video is going to be going over my final RTT list for the May 18th tournament in Sackville, New Brunswick in the store Vortex. It's going to be 16 players, and Necron Mike is going to be at the RTT as well. He's going to be bringing his Hypercrypt Necron list, so that should be pretty fun. Hopefully we don't pair up until the finals, so we'll see about that. This video is going to be going over my final list, and this is the list I decided to go with. Yes, it's a bit skewed, but I had to kind of dig into my toolbox to try to figure out something a little different to use. It's going to be Talons of the Emperor, just because I do like the stratagems in that. So this is going to be going over that list in kind of detail and just what my ideas for it and my thought process for the units in the list. So let's go over the list, and then we'll go over the list in its entirety in a little more detail of why I brought these units. It comes to 2,000 points exactly, and it is the Talons of the Emperor. I'm going to call it the Watchers of the Throne just because I enjoy that book series. For my characters, I do have a Blade Champion with the Gift of the Terran Artifice, and all that does is give him a +1 to wound in melee. And then I have a Shield Captain with the Aegis Projector. And what that does is the first damage that the unit takes, I can turn to 0. At first, you think that people are only going to shoot you with a damage 1 weapon, but even that, a damage 1 weapon, this can be used every turn. This can stack up, protecting your wardens and make them stick around just a little bit longer than people might expect them to. And then I do have, for my battle line, I have 5 Custodian Guard. 4 of them have the Spears. 1 of them has the Vexilla, just so I can help with a little more OC on them, just for holding on to objectives and kind of proccing that re-roll wounds ability. Just I want to make sure I have objectives fully when I'm using this, so I can kind of get Draxus to pump out some big damage. And then for our other data sheets, we do have 2 Caladius Grav Tanks with the Arachnus Blaze Cannons, just for pumping out some long-range heavy damage. We also have 2 units of Custodian Wardens. Both of them have the 5 Spears and the 1 Vexilla. And we just have 4 Prosecutors just for standing on that home objective. And then our allied units, we have Kyria Draxus. And then for the big bad in this list, and the big thing that I did kind of put in this list, the big tech piece, is Canis Rex. And hopefully I can use the tanks to kind of give him some backup firepower, allowing him to go up the board. So we're going to see about him, and we're going to go over the list here and just exactly why I brought these units in my thought process. And I do understand that this list is a list that a lot of people won't be able to build, because I do have Canis Rex in the Forge World tanks. You can kind of proxy a knight for Canis Rex, but yes, it is kind of a more difficult, more expensive list to put together. But and see what I could do with this list and see what Canis Rex and some of these kind of Forge World tanks can do to help this Talons of the Emperor Detachment in a tournament setting. Alright, so let's talk about why I took this big boy. Why did I take Canis Rex? So Canis Rex is a huge threat on the table, and it helps get around some of those half damage modifying things. Like I fought a lot of the Catan in the last week or two, and they are brutal to get through without having Trajan ignore modifier. So hopefully Canis Rex in his melee will help me, because it is damage 9, so help me get through some of those Catan if I do face against Mike or another Necron player in the tournament. And Rex will take a lot of pressure off my infantry and my scoring units. People are going to be really afraid of him. People don't want him to get into combat with them, so he's going to be targeted first. But I do have some little things I can get around with, hopefully making him not as a huge target, because people are going to have a little bit difficult with the target priority of my list, I'm hoping. His datasheet abilities, you don't need him in the Imperial Knights Detachment to get them to work. Yes, they do have some battle tactics you can probably use for free, so you can use his ability to have CP reroll for free. That's not bad. It's good so I can get reliable charges with him. And then his ability of crits on 5s, that doesn't matter what detachment he's in, where he's at, so I also get that. And then all of his weapons, his ranged and his melee, have sustained 1. It's all throughout his datasheet, sustained 1, crits on 5, he hits on 2. So this guy will be reliable and a big threat, a big tech piece on the board. And he is expensive, yes, but he's cheaper than a 5-man Terminator with a Shield Captain, and that's 465 points. He's only 535. Not a big difference, but like I said, he's a big threat on the board, and he does help me deal with some of them big, tough units that usually I would have to take a turn or 2 to beat through them. He might be able to smash them in 1 turn. And then Rex, he will be a great mid-board threat. I don't need to rush him up right away. I don't even need to have him out of cover right away. If I have a place where I can put him in cover, but I can still move him in later turns, I think that could be also fantastic too. Even if I have to sacrifice a Grav tank, hopefully not both of them, to take out the opponent's anti-tank, that'll really allow Rex to shine in the late game. late game, get him up on the mid board. Just he'll be a really big threat, and then I still have my wardens and my other infantry Drax as other threats running around. And yes, it is a skewed list, but the Custodes Codex isn't the strongest. Like, I love my Custodes. I love finding ways to make them work. That's why I'm trying to think of bringing Rex in this detachment. I've seen Art of War had him in the Orc detachment. I thought, hey, maybe he might work in the Talons of the Emperor. Alrighty, so now I'm going to go over each of my units and just the synergy it does have with the detachment and some of the stratagems there is with this detachment. So first we have the Shield Captain with the Aegis Protector with the 5 Wardens. And like I said before, the Aegis Protector can save potentially a lot of wounds from my Wardens. Aegis Protector is a once per turn enhancement. Even if we zeroed a 1 damage weapon over the course of the game, that's going to be a lot of damage negated. And then also for the Shield Captain, we have Talon Pincer, so our reactive move, the Emperor's Executioners, the +1 to the melee, and the Empiric Severance, which meh, the 4 Funeral Pain against mortals. And this can be used for free by the Shield Captain, so these are big stratagems to pay attention for my list, and just to always keep on my mind and just be trying to kind of decide, do I want to use reactive movement for free, or do I want that extra punch in melee for free for +1 to wound in melee. And then we have the Blade Champion with the Gift of Terran Artifice with the 5 Wardens. And the Gift of Terran Artifice, this gives the Blade Champion a little more threat with that +1 to wound in melee. His damage 3 weapon and getting +1 to wound makes his unit much more dangerous to high toughness enemies, so you'll be able to get some of those, maybe a Land Raider, you might be able to get a couple extra wounds in with the +1 to wound. I need to remember that, to always kind of keep a CP in my pocket just so I could reactive move this unit, because the Shield Captain, I can do that for free if I needed to, but this one I will have to spend a CP for. So I think these 2 units of Wardens are going to be very cagey, very hard to get a hold of. Even when you do get a hold of them, they have the 4 Funeral Pain, they hit quite hard, and they also can use the Hunt as 1 to fall back and charge if you need to with one of these units. Like I said, very powerful. I think these guys are going to do very well on the list. Next, we'll talk about Draxus with her 5 Custodian Guard. So I put this unit in every list I make pretty much. She's just so good. She usually always makes up her points, and she's always worth it. Her unit is extremely deadly against infantry units. The Guard give her a way to reroll 1s, or even everything if you're on an objective that you control. And then the Custodian Guard have the double shooting once per game. That also works with her. You have them double shooting on a unit you can. So if you have them double shooting on an objective you control, you can pick up 10-man groups of infantry quite reliably. And then for 1 CP, Talons Interlocked, you can really add some extra punch with this unit. The AP1 is handy for her AP0 shooting, but the AP1 really helps the Custodian Guard a lot more. It's so easy to get cover in this game, AP1 hardly ever matters. And then the +1 to strength really helps her Dirge Singer weapon. It really helps it shine because it brings it up to an important strength 5, so it allows you to damage some of the Space Marines and other toughness 4 things on 3s. The Guardian Spears are now strength 5 as well. So with the right setup, you can really do some big damage. You can even pick up full units of Terminators, not just light infantry. So these guys can really punch up their weight with the Talons Interlocked. And this is a great unit for guarding the home field objective, depending on the deployments. I do believe in the tournament we do have a search and destroy, so it really helps for me. I can kind of put them to the objective closest to my deployment. I think this is a big important unit. Pretty much always going to throw her in any one of my competitive lists. Alright, so let's go over the last units. So we do have the Prosecutors. They're just a simple 40-point unit to throw on my home objective. Depending on the opponent's army, this could allow Draxus to roam around them more freely instead of just protecting my home objective. The Caladius tanks are big in this list. These tanks will be key for me to target the enemy's anti-tank units. I can afford to put these out in more dangerous positions if I can reliably take out the anti-tank units. And this will clear the anti-tank, allowing Canis Rex to play a lot more of a role in the later rounds of the game. If I can keep him protected in the first few rounds, get rid of the anti-tank and then start pushing him out, it'll make it pretty difficult in the later rounds. And these being a credible range threat, it will also take some of the target priority off of Rex. People might want to try to take these tanks out instead, so it'll really mess up with my opponent's target priority of what should I really take out first. The Talon Pincer stratagem is Custodes units, so you can possibly bait them into shooting lanes, and then if they move within 9 inches of this tank, you can move it out of the way, move it behind the cover, move it out of some of those shooting lanes. And you can also use some other units to kind of direct the movement into this tank. So as long as they get 9 inches within this tank in their movement phase, whether it be a fallback, advance, regular movement, you can move this tank. I think that's going to be pretty big. And then also Empiric Severance, I usually don't like this. And then Empiric Severance, I usually don't want to use this on a infantry unit, but on the grav tanks, this can be pretty big. If they're trying to take out some extra wounds with a grenade or a tank shot, 1 CP can be worth it for saving this 215 point unit. It's still situational, but maybe if they're trying to take out a couple wounds and then charge it with some low strength weapons, you might want to use Empiric Severance just to kind of negate some of that damage. So once again, the Custodes grav tanks are going to be key to protecting Rex and just allowing my units to push up the board, allowing me to control the mid board and get a lot of the primary points. Alright, so now let's go over the strengths of this list. So it is not nearly as CP hungry as the original Index Detachment. The only 2 CP stratagem is the Emperor's Executioners with the +1 to melee if the target is below starting strength. The good thing is this is a battle tactic, and it's a stratagem we can use for free with the Shield Captain, only if you're targeting his unit. Luckily, I don't have a lot of Sisters unit in this list, so that's going to be pretty much 100% of the time. There's lots of reactive movement with this list, and I'm able to double it up with the Shield Captain, so I should be able to make these 2 Warden units hard to deal with, hard to get a hold of, and even when you do get a hold of them, they're going to be hard to take out. So the units I do have are tough as nails and they're reliable. Besides the Prosecutors, the Wardens have a 4-up Feel No Pain once per game. The tanks have lethal versus vehicles, twin linked. Rex hits on 2s with exploding 5. Then Draxus with her 18-inch loan up can be a nightmare to deal with. Every list has strengths, every list has weaknesses, so the secondary scoring is very little in this list. Controlling objectives and being in the mid board should produce some of the secondary scoring that I need. The use of the Blade Champion unit will be key to denying primary and gaining some potential enemy deployment secondary scoring. And then my tanks can also be used late game once their top targets have been dealt with. The amount of units in this list is quite low. I chose to ignore the detachment and the secondary scoring of the Sisters for a more dangerous list. This is not aimed at anyone in particular at all, but this list will have a higher skill ceiling. It's not the old stand-on objectives and hope to outscore the enemy. Knowing which unit to use the reactive move on and where to move these units will really be key to this army. Target priority will also play a big part in allowing this list to thrive. Losing key parts of this army early can really hurt me, also hurt the long game plan of this list. Besides the Warden's 4-up Feel No Pain once per game, the only damage mitigation we really have is the reactive movement, so it's reactive mitigation, and then we can use the Empiric Severance against mortals, but once again, that's pretty situational. And like all detachments, devastating wounds will be devastating to our army. We will need to use proper movement, and knowledge of the devastating wounds threats in the opponent's army will really be key. So those are your weaknesses. Alright, so let's finish with the final thoughts. So my final thoughts, they're a bit unknown really. This is my official RTT list. I submit it. The lists are locked in now. I've done some personal dice testing with this list, but I won't really know how it performs until I play it. So this is going to be happening May 18th, so this weekend coming up. So I'm going to ask if I have time and politely if I can take some pictures during the game. Monday, May 20th, I will upload a video of the results and then with my experience of the tournament and then with my final thoughts on this list. So I'm hoping this does well and wish me luck. And like I always say, thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by.